For years, Kandi believed wholeheartedly that she was living the kind of life people dream about. It was a life she worked hard to build, a life she cherished, a life she showed proudly on camera and off. Her marriage to Taryn, a man she saw as her partner, her confidant, her best friend, appeared to be rooted in love, loyalty, and mutual devotion. They laughed together, dreamed together, and built a family that millions of fans admired from a distance. Every moment, every smile, every tender exchange seemed to confirm what she believed, that she had chosen the right man, that her home was safe, and that her heart was protected. But behind that carefully crafted life, behind the cameras, the reality TV glamour, the social media shine, a devastating truth was brewing. One that would ultimately fracture everything she knew about love, trust, and loyalty. It was a secret so deeply buried, so meticulously hidden, that when the truth finally surfaced, it didn't just hurt, it shattered her entire world. Tonight we peel back the layers of this emotional catastrophe, revealing the heartbreaking saga of a love betrayed for 5 excruciating years. To the millions who followed her journey, Kandi represented authenticity wrapped in glamour. She was a celebrated singer with a voice that resonated across generations, and a reality TV personality whose charisma drew audiences in week after week. She spoke openly about her dreams, her challenges, her triumphs, and her joys, creating a bond with fans that felt almost familial. Her marriage to Taryn stood as one of the most admired partnerships in the entertainment world. Taryn appeared to be everything a supportive spouse should be: attentive, encouraging, grounded, and unwavering in his love for her. Together, they cultivated an image of stability, passion, and playful banter that kept viewers rooting for them. To fans, they weren't simply a TV couple. They were a symbol of hope, a rare example of love surviving the chaotic shadows of fame. Little did anyone know that beneath this glittering surface, cracks were forming. Not cracks caused by the normal ups and downs of marriage, but deep fissures carved by secrets so heavy that the entire foundation of their relationship was quietly starting to crumble. As Kandi continued to pour herself into her family and career, believing wholeheartedly in the integrity of her marriage, Taryn was living a life she never imagined possible. His path frequently crossed with Portia, a charismatic personality in the same reality TV universe. Their professional interactions and social circle encounters made their closeness feel ordinary, almost inevitable in the world they occupied. What no one knew, not even those closest to them, was that beneath the casual conversations, the stage scenes, and the friendly smiles, Taryn and Portia were engaged in a covert affair that spanned half a decade. 5 years. 5 years of hidden messages, secret meetings, and emotional duplicity. 5 years of carefully orchestrating a double life that camouflaged itself beneath public appearances and private reassurances. Every time Kandi saw Portia smile, every time she saw Taryn casually greet her at an event, she believed she was witnessing harmless interaction within a shared professional world. It never occurred to her, not even once, that those moments were deeply intertwined with betrayal, deceit, and emotional manipulation. Discovering the truth of an affair is painful under any circumstance, but discovering that the person you love has maintained an elaborate web of deception for 5 years is a level of emotional devastation few can comprehend. For Kandi, the unraveling of truth didn't happen all at once. It crept in slowly, through small inconsistencies, lingering doubt she tried to dismiss, and moments where her intuition whispered that something felt off. Yet she loved Taryn deeply, trusted him completely, and chalked up those fleeting suspicions to stress, exhaustion, or miscommunication. Over time, however, the whispers grew louder. Unfamiliar numbers on phone logs, excuses that didn't fully align, emotional distance disguised as busyness, and then the moment she stumbled upon the undeniable evidence: messages exchanged in the late hours, coded conversations, and carefully planned meetings that had never been disclosed. Her heart didn't just break, it collapsed. Everything she thought she knew was suddenly rewritten by heartbreak, and the man she believed she understood better than anyone else became a stranger standing in her home. For most people, betrayal is a private pain, something navigated behind closed doors, with time and emotional space to process the devastation. But for Kandi, fame stripped away the privacy that heartbreak should afford. As soon as whispers of the affair surfaced publicly, the internet erupted. Fans expressed outrage, sympathy, disbelief, and heartbreak on her behalf. Gossip pages spun theories, dissected timelines, and speculated on motives. Clips from past episodes were re-examined, scrutinized frame by frame, as viewers searched for clues they wished they had noticed earlier. Kandi's pain became a trending topic. Her tears became thumbnails. Her heartbreak became entertainment. Imagine going through the most devastating emotional trauma of your life while millions watch, judge, comment, and analyze every move you make. Every day, each headline and viral post served as a painful reminder of the betrayal she had endured. The world saw shock value. Kandi lived the raw internal agony of being blindsided by the people she trusted most. The more details that came to light, the more horrifying the scope of the betrayal became. Taryn and Portia's relationship wasn't a fleeting lapse in judgment. It was an orchestrated betrayal sustained over half a decade. There were long conversations hidden behind seemingly innocent notifications, meetings disguised as work obligations, a pattern of secrecy so deliberate that it required constant planning, deep lies, and emotional compartmentalization. For Kandi, the knowledge that Taryn maintained such an intricate double life was almost more painful than the affair itself. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a sustained choice, a daily betrayal, a parallel relationship that evolved, deepened, and thrived in the shadows of her marriage. Looking back, every memory she had with Taryn, every anniversary dinner, every family vacation, every heartfelt conversation felt contaminated. Moments she once considered precious now carried the aftertaste of deception. The emotional destruction was total, and for Kandi, the world she trusted dissolved into a haunting mosaic of lies. When the news finally broke in full, the emotional shockwave rippled across social media, talk shows, fan pages, and reality TV forums. People were enraged, heartbroken, and stunned by the magnitude of the betrayal. Some viewers expressed disbelief that Taryn could maintain a loving marriage while simultaneously nurturing a 5-year affair. Others directed their anger toward Portia, questioning how anyone could participate in deception that destroyed another woman's family. Fan theories exploded, timelines were reconstructed, old episodes were rewatched with a new lens. Everyone had an opinion and no one held back. The public began debating motives, speculating on hidden emotions, and arguing about who bore the greatest fault. For Kandi, this massive storm of attention made healing even harder. She wasn't simply processing her own grief. She was also absorbing the emotional projections of millions who felt personally invested in the drama unfolding before their eyes. Yet despite the heartbreak, despite the emotional turmoil, despite the crushing weight of betrayal and public exposure, Kandi found strength. Instead of hiding, she chose to speak out. Instead of letting the narrative be controlled by rumors or speculation, she stepped forward with honesty, vulnerability, and courage. She allowed the world to see her pain, not as entertainment, but as truth. Her willingness to reveal such a raw, intimate chapter of her life transformed her from a victim of betrayal into a symbol of resilience. Fans connected deeply with her openness, seeing in her story reflections of their own heartbreaks, disappointments, and losses. She reminded people that even in the face of unimaginable betrayal, one can confront truth, reclaim dignity, and begin forging a new path forward. Kandi's strength didn't erase her pain, but it illuminated her ability to rise above it. However, for months, the world believed Kandi and Todd were handling their separation with grace. Two successful adults simply growing apart after years of blending families, balancing businesses, surviving reality TV storms, and navigating differences the public assumed they'd already conquered. Their split seemed peaceful, even boring. No explosions, no cryptic posts, no messy interviews, just silence. But silence in stories like these is never peace. Silence is preparation. Silence is pressure building beneath foundations that already contain cracks. And on November 21st, 2025, when a simple filing slipped across the clerk's desk without announcement or spectacle, the public mistook quiet for closure. What they didn't know was that it was the opening shot in a battle that would unravel not just a marriage, but an entire narrative, built over years of televised smiles and controlled storylines. When the first hearing finally arrived, the illusion collapsed instantly. Todd didn't enter the courtroom with the face of a devastated husband or a man clinging to the last pieces of a crumbling life. He came in with determination, calculation, and a legal team carrying folders as thick as dictionaries. The energy wasn't grief, it was strategy. And when the judge asked for preliminary motions, Todd's lawyers didn't test the water or gradually escalate their requests. They detonated everything at once, demanding full custody, spousal support, child support, and the most explosive demand of all, a full challenge to the prenup. It was the kind of aggressive posture that raised eyebrows, not because such requests are unheard of in high-profile divorces, but because of how quickly and confidently they surfaced, as if they'd been drafted long before Kandi filed her paperwork, as if they'd been waiting for this moment.
According to Todd's testimony, the prenup had been a trap, something he'd been pressured into signing the day before the wedding with no lawyer in sight, no time to think, and no real choice. His voice carried practiced disappointment, carefully placed pauses, and language designed to trigger sympathy. Pressured, manipulated, cornered, unfair. But even as he spoke, the courtroom felt something off. Not a crack in his story, a lack of vulnerability in his tone. This wasn't the shaky voice of a man reliving a traumatic moment. It was the steady voice of someone executing a plan. And while he spoke, the judge's eyes drifted repeatedly toward Kandi, who didn't cry, didn't object, didn't shake her head in disbelief. She sat in stillness, the kind that didn't read as defeat, but as someone who filed not out of emotion, but out of clarity. Someone who already knew how this would end. Once the prenup claim hit the air, the courtroom transformed into something far more volatile than a legal chamber. It became a vault cracking open, years of unspoken resentment and unresolved tension spilling out in documented waves. Witnesses were called who referenced old rumors that fans thought had been long buried. The infamous Portia situation, the alleged threesome conversation, stories that had circulated online but had never seen the inside of an actual courtroom. Lawyers read transcripts aloud, dug into old interviews, played clips from reunion episodes. The judge listened with increasing concern, not because every story was damning on its own, but because together they formed a pattern. A marriage carrying fractures far older than the divorce filing, a bond that had quietly decayed long before November 2025. And then came one of the most heartbreaking moments of all, when Riley and Kayla, two daughters raised under the same roof, spoke about their experiences. Riley, calm and controlled, explained that she never felt like Todd saw her as his. She described feeling compared, minimized, pushed to the edges of a home that should have been safe. Kayla countered emotionally, insisting Kandi had never truly embraced her, that she always felt like a guest instead of family. They weren't yelling, they weren't attacking each other, they were telling truths soaked in years of quiet pain. And as their voices filled the courtroom, something became undeniable. This wasn't a united home crumbling suddenly. It had been divided for years, and the divorce was simply the moment the truth became impossible to ignore. But the moment that ripped the oxygen from the room came without warning. Todd's team calmly requested DNA tests for Ace and Blaze, the children Todd had raised, cared for, and publicly claimed as his own. The reaction was instant. Gasps, murmurs, even the judge's expression tightened.
Kandi inhaled sharply as if the words physically struck her. Her lawyer slammed a file shut, unable to contain disbelief. Todd didn't look at anyone, not the judge, not Kandi, not even his own team. He stared straight ahead, choosing strategy over humanity. And in that moment, sympathy evaporated. Whatever neutrality he'd maintained dissolved, because questioning the paternity of the children you claim to love isn't just a legal move, it's a fracture that changes every room it enters. When the final hearing opened, Todd's lawyer repeated their strongest claim yet again, that Todd signed the prenup under pressure, without counsel, and without consent. They delivered the argument with unwavering confidence, believing it to be their most powerful pillar. And then the judge turned to Kandi and asked a single, devastating question. Do you have any evidence to counter this claim? Kandi nodded gently, opened her phone, scrolled to a hidden folder, and tapped a video file that had been locked away for years. The courtroom speakers crackled, and Todd's voice filled the room with a calmness that contradicted every word he had sworn under oath. The video showed him smiling, relaxed, willingly signing the prenup while saying, "I'm good. I want to sign this. No pressure. I love you. I'm doing the right thing." 15 seconds. That's all it took. The courtroom fell silent in a way that felt less like shock and more like truth finally landing. The judge didn't grandstand or deliver a dramatic speech. They simply reviewed the evidence, turned a page, and finalized the divorce. The prenup challenge was denied in full. Custody remained with Kandi. The children stayed in her care. And as reporters waited outside for statements that never came, it became clear that the story wasn't ending here. This was only the beginning of the fallout. Once the clip leaked online, everything shifted. Fans began revisiting old episodes, old interviews, old reunion moments, looking for signs they'd missed. Patterns emerged. Little comments Todd made about finances, jokes about ownership, moments where Mama Joyce's skepticism seemed less dramatic and more intuitive. And when reports surfaced that the DNA request had been drafted before the hearing, the narrative turned darker. The public wasn't just judging a divorce. They were reinterpreting an entire marriage through a lens they'd never used before. Riley began posting subtle messages, not explosive accusations, just quiet acknowledgments of long-felt hurt. Kayla defended her father fiercely, insisting the story was one-sided, her messages filled with emotion that hinted at more history than she could publicly share. The daughters were no longer simply two young women navigating a blended family. They were living symbols of the fracture. Two truths, two experiences, colliding in a public sphere neither asked to be part of. Behind the scenes, Todd grew more combative. He changed lawyers. He reviewed custody schedules not with the eyes of a father seeking balance, but with the scrutiny of someone trying to regain control. He questioned financial documents he'd never cared about before. Every move felt colder, sharper, less about family, more about leverage. Meanwhile, Kandi stopped responding emotionally. She didn't engage in back-and-forth battles. She didn't perform strength for the cameras. She simply detached. For the first time in years, she wasn't fighting to make the marriage work. She was protecting her peace. And then came the final revelation that tied everything together. The prenup had never been a problem until the divorce became inevitable. If Todd had truly felt pressured, he would have challenged it years earlier, long before the children, long before the businesses, long before the silence between them grew so loud that even cameras couldn't edit around it. His timing wasn't coincidence. It was confession, a silent admission that the challenge wasn't about injustice. It was about strategy. A strategy undone by a single, unshakable piece of evidence. In the end, this story wasn't about who loved harder or who broke first. It wasn't about who yelled, who stayed quiet, who filed, or who fought. It was about intention. The intentions people hide behind good moments, behind public smiles, behind camera-ready affection. And when intentions finally reveal themselves, the truth doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes it's just 15 seconds of video, 15 seconds that turn strategy into rubble, 15 seconds that rewrite years of narrative. As the emotional dust settles and the truth continues to unravel, one looming question remains. How does someone rebuild after a betrayal of this magnitude? How does a woman who loved deeply, trusted fully, and gave her whole heart recover from discovering that her marriage was intertwined with deception for 5 painful years? Kandi now stands at a crossroads, between heartbreak and healing, between truth and the future still unwritten. Fans continue to wonder whether Taran will ever fully acknowledge the depth of his betrayal, whether Portia will confront her role in the devastation, and whether the fractures created by years of secrecy can ever be repaired. But more importantly, they wonder how Kandi will rebuild her life. Will she find closure? Will she forgive? Will she transform this heartbreak into a chapter of empowerment? The world watches closely, not out of voyeuristic fascination, but because her story speaks to something painfully human, a universal fear of loving the wrong person, trusting too deeply, or being blindsided by the ones closest to us. And now, as we reach the end of this emotional journey, the question shifts from what happened to what comes next. What would you do if you discovered the person you loved most had been living a secret life for 5 years? Could you forgive such a betrayal? Is there any path back from deception of this magnitude? Or does trust once shattered remain irreparable? Share your thoughts in the comments below, your heartbreak, your outrage, your insights. If this story moved you, shocked you, or made you reflect on the fragility of trust, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for the next chapter in this deeply emotional saga. Because while this story has shaken the world, the revelations aren't over. The truth continues to unfold, and Kandi's journey towards healing and empowerment is only just beginning. Stay tuned. The next revelation may change everything you thought you knew.